A Mozambique court has started delivering its verdict in a case linked to a $2 billion scandal that crashed the country's economy.
It was already known that the relationship between former President Armando Guebuza and the Privinvest group went far beyond state business. The director of the company that sold boats and other equipment to the government of Mozambique developed a relationship, even affinity, with Guebuza. This fact was noted on several occasions, such as in text messages exchanged between Guebuza and Boustani, in which he called him daddy. During the second trial of Manuel Chang in New York, more evidence of this objectionable relationship between Guebuza, members of his government, and the company that was behind the contracting of around $2 billion in debt, with guarantees from the Mozambican state giving rise to hidden debts.
A Mozambique court has started delivering its verdict in a case linked to a $2 billion scandal that crashed the country's economy. It involves 19 people allegedly involved in the disappearance of hundreds of millions of dollars in government-backed loans. The charges range from money laundering to blackmail, with the son of an ex-president one of the accused. In 2016, Mozambique unveiled hefty state-backed borrowing it had previously failed to disclose to Parliament or donors like the International Monetary Fund. An independent audit found roughly a quarter of the money was unaccounted for. The scandal prompted the IMF and others to cut off support, which triggered a currency collapse and debt default. All 19 have denied wrongdoing in the case.
A document presented by prosecutors during closing arguments in Manuel Chang's trial in Brooklyn reveals an ambitious business plan between Privinvest, the Guebuza family, and other important state officials at the time. This is a project to create an investment fund in Liechtenstein called Privinvest Holding Mozambique, which would operate in several business sectors in Mozambique, such as financial sector, real estate, oil and gas, agriculture, shipbuilding, and even luxury jets operations.
Well, to explain exactly what debts have been made, where the money came from, where the money has gone to. Still a fair amount that the IMF needs in order to make the accounting calculations to assess the country properly, in order to continue to have a relationship both as an advisor to the government of Mozambique and as a lender to the government of Mozambique. And Antoinette Sayé, who's the director of the Africa department, said also it needs to be cleared out so that they can assess what next steps our relationship will have. So in other words, implying that this is not just about simple accounting. This is about transparency, accountability, not just to the fund, but to the people of Mozambique. I can't speak for the finance minister, but to sort of give you an impression of where we're at the moment, I calculated that if they'd used the $850 million purely for a tuna fishing fleet, and they purchased 40-foot tuna vessels with freezer capacity, that would have given them enough money to buy 3,632 vessels. Now, clearly that's not the case. So there's a fair amount of confusion about exactly where the money's gone. And also, if you think about it, the IMF said that it had been disclosed that over $1 billion of loans had been undisclosed to the fund. Over $1 billion, what does that mean? Does that mean just over $1 billion? Does that mean significantly over $1 billion? We don't yet know. So there is a fair amount of confusion. But clearly, at some level, to be fair to Mozambique, there's been some kind of misunderstanding of what the reporting requirements were. And of course, that is another area that needs to be clarified.
Despite being based in Liechtenstein, Europe, the holding majority owned by the Guebuza and Privinvest family will focus its activity in Mozambique. This is revealed right in the introduction of the document, which begins by stating that Mozambique is blessed with a wealth of resources that, however, require investment, financing, and management dedicated to being developed to their full potential. So this private business was between the family of Armando Guebuza with a company that took the state to contract the largest single debt that the Mozambican state has ever had. The fact that Armando Guebuza was the head of the states and government, the company had the plan to act through the creation of subsidiary companies focused on the shipbuilding industry and installations, develop residential and office buildings, create commercial and investment banks, gas developments, investment in land and water, private jets rentals and sales. If all this had went according to the plan, Mozambique would be one of the countries with the most developed economy.
The Liechtenstein investment fund, called Privinvest Holding Mozambique, would have Privinvest Holding as its main shareholder with 50%, which is Iskander Safa's company. The other 50% would be held by a group of senior officials of the state who controlled key sectors of governance at the time, starting with Guebuza himself. Among the 50% of Mozambicans, Armando Guebuza and his son Armando, Ndambi Guebuza would have 50% of the shares. Manuel Chang would have 20%. Gregorio Lao Jose, the director of SICE at the time, would have 20%, and Antonio Carlos do Rosario, director of Intelligence Economic at the time, would have 10%. With this shareholder structure, it was guaranteed that Privinvest Holding Mozambique had all the conditions to do lobbying for the success of your business in Mozambique. In fact, the plan states that Palomar Capital Advisors in Switzerland, which would be 100% owned by Privinvest Holding Mozambique based in Liechtenstein, would provide exclusive services to advisors from the Ministry of Finance in Mozambique.
The US Department of Justice claims that the business plan between Guebuza, other high-ranking state officials, and Privinvest was just about making more money at the expense of the state. Addressing the members of the jury, the prosecutor Cheningai stated the following.
First told you about a meeting that Boustani, the defendant Chang and Du Rosario had in September 2013, and this meeting took place at the estate of Iskander Safa, Domaine de Barbassi, in the south of France. And at this meeting, the defendant known as Chang, Boustani and Du Rosario, the three of them, came up with this idea to make even more money. Boustani even says, "This was what we agreed with our friends. And this business idea, or this idea, this is how it would work." Palomar, owned by Safa, Purse and Boustani, agreed to provide exclusive services to the Ministry of Finance, which the defendant drove. And the services that Palomar was going to provide was to help raise money for this thing, called Sovereign Fund. Because you see, well, Palomar was supposed to receive $100 million in fees from the Ministry of Finance, and all this money was going to flow to this company called Privinvest Holding Mozambique.
Discussions on the creation of the Privinvest Holding Mozambique dates back to September 2013 as revealed in the documents presented in court. However, they did not work because the following year, Guebuza ended his mandate and Nyusi, who also committed crimes of his own, came replacing and did not continue with the hidden debts project. And even more so, the scandal broke out when the Mozambican companies defaulted, leading creditors to reveal the existence of the debts in the press. It's important we keep monitoring these politicians who just came to make money out of the state and leave it destroyed.
Sitting in court as he's handed a 12-year jail sentence, the scene is a far cry from his former life of luxury. The son of Mozambique's former president was among 11 people found guilty in a corruption case known as the Tuna Bond scandal.
My name is Jay, and this is Moment in Future, pulling you into the truth.